we have found at the foundation for shamanic studies that any human being can learn to shamanically journey. Nearly all my students are able to shamanically journey within the 2-day period. Does that mean they become a shaman in 2 days? Of course not. If you learn to plink out one little tune on a piano, are you a professional musician in 2 days? Of course not. It is a longer training. However, you can get a good start. And so anyone can play music, anyone can practice shamanism. How far you go in it is completely up to you and the universe. It's between you and the helping spirits. So there's a developmental period. I would say that it is many years, actually, but you can learn and practice shamanic techniques in a relatively short period of time. In fact, if you're already doing intuitive work or you're already intuitively inclined, you can learn to practice shamanic healing in a matter of weeks. Now, how far that will develop, I mean, when you get to the real miracle healings and the miraculous divinations, is probably at a later stage. You need to learn how to process intuitive information. It takes time. So now in the tribal situation, most people were working full-time just to survive. And so if someone showed an inclination toward shamanism, then they would automatically be, in a sense, categorized, you could say, as, okay, this is one who is able to perceive other worlds. And so the spirits would tend to work through that one individual for the whole tribe, for the benefit of the whole tribe through that one individual. So that's where indigenous shamanisms would say that person has been chosen by the spirits. But they will often then say, well, only that person can do shamanism. And this is sort of the beginning of ethnocentricity. Then it becomes, that's like saying only a person who picked up the piano at a young age could ever be a master composer. That's not true. Some get started much later in life. So there's no, I mean, some people become shamans even at 50 or 60 years old. It's not as common, but some tribes will say, no, you have to be chosen by the spirits and that's it. And in fact, in Mongolia, they love to kind of protect their market by saying, oh, shamanism is so rare and so dangerous, and so that only the chosen people like me can do it. So please come to me and give me lots of money and stuff. So anyway, that's that. So just like doctors and lawyers, they protect their market. They say you have to be approved by this association of our club, our doctors and lawyers, to say that you're authorized to practice law, you're authorized to practice medicine. So, this is, again, it comes back to ethnocentricity, which is something that, in a sense is natural, but it's also a kind of infection. And it's something that is here in the middle world. Now, in the upper world and the lower world, these are considered the heavenly spheres or the transcendent spheres. And there, everybody gets along. It doesn't mean that everybody's just the same. The spirits in the upper and lower world still have personalities, still have differences, qualities, different expressions. We call them the gods, the goddesses, the angels. They do have different personalities, different appearances, different voices, different powers, different interests. So there's all that variety in the upper and lower world, but everyone gets along. Now, that could be that way here in the middle world, but it tends not to be. There's a tendency to start to believe that my tribe, my group, we have the right answer, and those people over there don't. And that may not be at the beginning, but it tends to come in. And so religion is born, it is said, when the last shaman dies. So the great shamans of old, and they're still here, it's not only long ago. I mean, especially in the Abrahamic religions, we have a tendency to say, oh, well, all the magic and all the miracles was done thousands of years ago by the prophets and the saints and sages long ago, and nobody does that now. Well, shamans don't agree with that. shamans would say all those miracles and all the magic of long ago is right here today, and people are doing it. My students are doing it. Shamans are doing it in indigenous settings. Miracles are happening all the time. We usually don't notice them unless we start to look for them. Now, the big ones are rare. People are not always ready to see them. We have a tendency to do what's called negative hallucination, not see what is there.
Yeah.
So even when miracles happen, or uncanny coincidences, synchronicities that are so far beyond chance, I mean, as to reach into the trillions to one chance that those events could have come together. And yet, you know, the ordinary reality mind wants to say, oh, that's coincidence. Well, indigenous peoples look at those things, and the spirits, it is said, work through coincidences. They arrange coincidences here in the middle world to see if we are paying attention. So are you paying attention to the coincidence that you are hearing this right now?
And so, as we are anchoring healing through journeying, and in this quote unquote crazy world that sometimes tends to show itself as extra crazy, like in these days right now, how can, or is there a way that shamanic journeying can help an individual through such time? And if
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just by knowing that there is a larger reality helps. But also visiting the realms of the upper world and the lower world where everybody gets along encourages us. We are able to experience. Imagine if we grew up in a community where everybody got along. That would be our experience. That would be considered the norm. Right now, the norm is that we expect almost not to get along. And we're taught by our parents that, you know, those are the good people there and those are the bad people over there. And immediately we are programmed into this. You know, or we are do it this way and those people do it a different way. And, you know, somehow that's not good. Or our spirits are better than their spirits. You know, this is this is ethnocentricity. In other words, being centered in your own cultural experience. And it's not that it's so much wrong. You can certainly have pride in your traditions and the good things and all the wisdom that has been passed down from your ancestors. But we have a tendency to get stuck. And so that's why the indigenous peoples call this the pain world, or the confused world, or the Buddhists and Hindus call this samsara, the illusory world. It doesn't mean that it's totally unreal. It is relatively real. But the shamans would consider that this is, you know, a confusion. In fact, as I understand it, the Australian Aboriginals considered the middle world and the lower world to be one world at one time. But because of our own contraction of consciousness, we started to perceive only the ordinary part and not the non-ordinary part. So we lost the magic. It's so funny that people go to films now. They go see Harry Potter movies or some superhero movie or something. It's because they want the magic. They want to feel the magic. And yet they'll walk right out of the film and say, well, that was just a movie that has nothing to do with ordinary reality. And yet their soul is crying out for this magic. Use the force, Luke. Live long and prosper. I mean, all of these things are become so much part of our culture. Well, indigenous cultures, they told the story of the gods. You know, that's what they all did. They sat around the fire. They didn't play on their phones or watch TV. They told the story of the spirits, the stories of the spirits, or of the saints and sages. And, you know, we had a direct connection to that. Now it comes through film or TV, but the problem is that film and TV is so infected with greed and fear. And that is, in a sense, almost the essence of marketing. You know,
preparation as the essence of marketing.
Yeah. Here's something that you've got to have, greed, or here's something you can't do without fear. So you've got to create as much FOMO, fear of missing out, as possible in order to get your product sold. So that's the essence of marketing is to say you're not okay unless you get this.
If you were to
So
ask me a few years back, I would say exactly 7 years ago, if I'd be shamanically journeying, I would have asked you, what are you on? In that sense. Now I'll be like, I'm on, shamanic drum beat, but then that would be it. Really, on a personal level, what shamanic journeying has helped me really dive into is the fact that there's help out there, as you said. We're not
we are
alone.
not alone.
And it's truly not until one actually allows themselves, and in this scenario, until I allowed myself to actually just trust myself through this, and myself, not necessarily the ego self, just surrender into that which I felt my soul is longing to, through a community, through a teacher, a mediator, like you like to call yourself a technical help desk, whilst journeying, and just really being able to anchor within oneself, the all the dimensions and all the wisdom, and I personally experienced so much compassion and love, and also anchoring so much of the frequency of love through shamanic journeying, that most of the time is with no words, although I go into a journey sometimes with the intention of seeking a specific answer, and personally so far what I always come back with is just a further sense of love.
Yes.
And so in this world, and especially with my own personal experience growing up at war, and having a family always in a somewhat of a, not somewhat, a war zone, and seeing all the division and all the different things that are happening in the world, it's not news to me. I grew up in this, I was born into this, and at the same time having the ability to shapeshift into that which we call the middle world, which is as real as what we call the not so real world, or the non-ordinary reality, and having the capacity and opening up to the fact that one can and already does exist in all these different dimensions at the same time, where there's all these melodramatic plays and at the same time love and compassion and kindness all coexisting in one big existence, is definitely what I would say the gift that shamanic journeying has given me on a personal level, and I'm forever thankful.
Wonderful. Glad to be part of it.
And I really thank you also for having, allowed me to hold that space, to be held that space in order to dive in further and further, and for being there. At the end of our conversation is seeding intention for the next one, whenever the time actually does allow us to again, would be if I'm someone who's a bit curious about shamanic journeying, and I'm just at home alone. What if I can give me 1 or 2 steps that can maybe help me inspire to maybe possibly even want to dive into the actual studies and the courses?
Well, you can start with these 2 books behind me, Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner,
Yep.
Sky Shamans of Mongolia by myself. There are other books, of course. It's one way to get started, but probably the best way to really get started is to take the 2-day course, The Way of the Shaman, and learn shamanic journeying. And once you get a taste of that shamanic journeying, and an overall view of what core shamanism is about, you can go on. And the nice thing about these courses is that they have been distilled and condensed for the modern person who did not come from a shamanic culture. Now, if you are living in a culture where shamanism is alive, you don't need core shamanism. Okay, you learn it right there at home. The Balinese have living shamanism, for example, going on right there. The Balinese don't need to take core shamanism courses, but most of the world has lost their connection. And so you can get connected to your own spirits, get connected to your own soul through shamanic journeying. And then you can make your own decisions about how far you want to go into the shamanic practice. Many persons, I would say maybe even most, will learn to shamanically journey outside of the box. Imagination is more important than knowledge. They'll get outside of the box in order to get information, energy, power, healing power for themselves, just to improve their own lives. So, when you get to the point to where your own life has been improved, and then you feel like, gosh, I want to share this. And so that's what the shaman does. They want to share the joy of the expanded state, the inclusive state of consciousness, otherwise known as love. And we want to share that. Love wants to be shared. It is natural. It is our nature. And non-ordinary reality is not some pie in the sky, float away kind of, something for people who are afraid of the dark, so to speak.
Yes.
No, it's fact. Non-ordinary reality is where we are from and where we're going to return to after we drop this monkey. And it's going to happen. Nobody gets out of here alive. I mean, but your spirit is alive, but your body's only going to last so long. There's an expiration date, right here. It's going to end. All of us are going to take that last breath and we're going to return to non-ordinary reality, which is where shamans have been operating all along. But we have this temporary amnesia. When we get down in here, we get so obsessed with the monkey that we're just constantly taking care of the monkey and paying our bills and getting what we want and getting away from what we don't want, that we're just on that hamster on the wheel, and then we drop the hamster and we go right back to non-ordinary reality. Well, for the shamanic practitioner, that's just one continuum. Birth, life, death, birth, life, death. It's one continuous continuum of consciousness. And in fact, the really great saints and sages, they have an unbroken continuum, a continuum of consciousness between death, after life, birth, going through physical form and beyond. They don't lose that connection. Now, we all do a little bit. But the great saints and sages who are really doing the miracles are those who keep that continuous consciousness. It's not easy. It's many lifetimes, I would say, in order to be able to hold that state. But Dr. Harner has two questions to determine whether someone, and one is do they journey to other worlds in an altered state of consciousness? And the second one is, do they perform miracles? And I don't mean tricks, I mean real miracles of healing, not just showman stuff. Most shamans are very discreet. And in fact, in many esoteric circles, there's quite a rule that you don't show off. You don't show off spiritual powers, but you use them when it's necessary. And so that's part of the humility of shamanism. And usually the greater the shaman, the humbler they are. They will say, I'm nothing, my spirits know. Or they'll say, I'm nothing, only God heals through me. So it's usually the beginners who will say, yeah, I'm amazing, aren't I? Well, that's okay. Sometimes we have to build up our self-esteem a little bit in order to realize I really am nothing, and it is the cosmic spirit that's working through me. But, it just depends where you are.
Beautifully said. And one last question, and it's more on a personal level for you. As you started shamanically journeying, what would you say was the biggest gift, the biggest fear, if there was one?
That's easy. Spiritual autonomy. I spent a lot of time in India, Nepal, Tibet, chasing lamas, swamis, yogis. And those were great experiences, and I learned a lot. But now, with a drumbeat, I can visit transcendent realms directly. I don't have to chase people around. And I don't have to worry about middle world inconveniences. I don't have to wait in line. I don't have to buy flight tickets. I don't have to get visas. I can go directly to the upper world or the lower world from right here in my chair, anytime I want, with just a drumbeat. I don't have to cook up 6 hours of ayahuasca or something to blast me into an altered state of consciousness. It's totally unnecessary. Psychedelics might be a way to get started, but there's just a way for breaking open perception to go, oh yeah, wow, non-ordinary reality. I forgot all about it. I came into this baby body, give me milk, and I forgot about non-ordinary reality. So psychedelics are helpful just for breaking open things, but not usually as a permanent way. So We use sound only, and in fact, we find that has much greater clarity.
Indeed, indeed, even on a personal level, I feel that even starting with sonic journeys, and at the same time having established this doorway, that at times, even at the suggestion of it, one is able to open.
Yeah. Well, once you learn to shamanically journey with sound alone, psychedelics actually become a hindrance and a distraction. That's why most practicing shamans, once they know how to access non-ordinary reality, they avoid psychedelics. It becomes really a distraction or even a hindrance. And some psychedelics actually hold you in the middle world because they have their own agenda. So
something that we can dive into further and further, as I remember in class as well, with middle world spirit and so on and so forth, which that in itself is definitely a space to explore further. The second part of my last question that I asked that I really want to go back to was, was there a fear for you wanting to dive into shamanic journeying at all, or was it more curiosity, or what was there something where you had a question?
Yeah, I'm probably more of an oddball because I was shamanically journeying since I was 4 years old. And that's probably why I'm teaching this. So it's something that was sort of natural for me. And I think that it's natural for all of us. I would say as small children, we were all shamanically journeying in our deep sleep when we were young. And I think that it's only when we start to take the middle world very seriously and the hormones, testosterone and estrogen starts flooding in, and all of a sudden we're like really serious about our physical bodies and our lives and making a name for ourselves, etc. Suddenly we don't remember what happened in our deep sleep anymore. And so that's when the suffering increases. Most kids are pretty naturally happy. It's we adults who teach them how to be unhappy.
The cycle goes on. All right. Having said this, with the intention of inspiring the ones who feel the call or the pull or the curiosity or that longing, as you said, that there's something out there. There's something else out there. This can't just be it, not from a space of resistance to what is, but rather again a space of deepening and deepening and deepening love. Through the journey of the self and therefore out into collective. I'll be posting the links to the courses that you teach in Bali and in other parts of Asia.
Yes, I have courses coming up in Thailand in January and February, and back in Bali, April, May, June, July, and continuously. I live in Bali, so I'm normally there.
And Bali is lucky to have you, as I reside here. So we're lucky to have you here. I'll also be posting links for the Way of the Shaman book, and also which I have here, the copy of the Sky Shamans.
Oh yes, thank you.
Signed by you.
Thank you. New book coming out next year.
Yes, looking forward.
End of next year.
Looking forward to this as well. And until we meet again in person, we're hoping that we're able to set up space for possibly further discussion. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being a part of Dream a New World, and I look forward.
Thank you, Zeina. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Same. Thank you so much.
Bye.